Hello, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Beer Garden again. Today, along with Nathan, Steve, and myself, we are going to talk about the Charene race cut in the afternoon. It will be a mixture of all-weather and turf race. Nathan, what do you think about the all-weather race in Hong Kong? Do you think it is always tricky?
It's very tricky. Those sort of Wednesday night meetings that we have a couple of times of the
Yeah.
year are always very hard. Hard for me anyway. I find the all weather's tough to dissect. Usually, as a rule, I like to be backing horses that are rails in run and typically on speed. Sometimes you get those big boldy types that bound down the middle of the track and sort of blow you out at the end of the race. So hopefully, I can find a few winners on the all weather later in the day as well. The opening car race of the day looks an interesting one,
Yes.
despite the small field. I think that's probably one of the main feature races on the all-weather. And then another horse that I've got a lot of time for that's made its way to the all-weather is Adderville. I'm interested to see how that goes today. And it's sort of made its way through the grades. And that looks another tricky
Mm,
race as well, with a really nice field on the all-weather. So I'm not usually too confident when we're tipping on those, but hopefully I can find a few for punters on that regard. But and the turf program is really good as well. So keen to jump into the treble at the end of the program because there's some nice races and some interesting horses, particularly in the last. You're going to see how this
yes.
Derby form stacks up going forward and just back into Class 3 and Class 2
Yes.
races going forward. So very interested to get your guys' perspective on that as well.
Yes, I think so. Interesting cut at Shatin this morning. What do you think, Steve? Because there are also so many dirts or the all-weather races in Europe. How do you compare it with the turf races?
I think in Hong Kong, I always prefer to be looking at the turf races. I think
Yeah.
for all that, I've picked. I've gone to the best bet in race number 6 on dirt, so that's interesting.
Mm,
But yes, it's one of these things. I mean, like the multiply, for instance, last time I liked him. I think Nathan yourself might have liked Shining Fortune, which won. But multiply just had no early
mm,
pace, and I think that's an important thing in some of these sprint races is to lay up with the pace. And that day,
yes.
multiplier under Zach Purton just couldn't live with it and just stayed on for a sort of 5 lengths fourth. And so you have to be quick from the lids, don't you? And I
Mm,
also find sometimes you'll get horses that, if you see a horse that's maybe had 25 turf runs and no dirt run, and you almost dismiss it out of hand, and then all of a sudden
mm,
he comes along
yeah.
and wins on his debut, and you think, well, why?
Mm.
You think to connections, why weren't you just having a pop at a dirt race long before now?
Mm.
And so I
Yeah.
tend to just go with my gut sometimes on dirt races because anything can happen.
Right. It is better for us to look for some outsider on the all-weather races. But today the weather in Hong Kong is quite good because we just had a rainy day at Happy Valley last Wednesday. A bit nasty the weather, but now it is getting better, and it is also expected to be sunny during the afternoon time in Hong Kong. So both the all-weather and the turf track are all in good condition. So hopefully we can bring you some winner. So let's start talking about the race card this afternoon at Shatin. The first race that we could discuss as usual will be the first leg of the treble, race 8, a turf race. It is a class 3 over 1200 meters. Let's start with Nathan. Who do you pick in race 8?
Yeah, pretty keen on one here. I've got a lot of time for this guy. He came from Australia, and I think he's been pretty good in Hong Kong since his arrival. And that's number 3 in the market. That's Midori Beauty. Just love the way he maps here from barrier 2, this deep field gelding. I think the market's well found him here. He's going to jump favourite, you'd think, at around 3.5 currently on the Jockey Club website. And I think that's fair enough, though. His trial leading into this preparation was outstanding. Comes off a relatively short spell, only 102 days, and he went out in a little bit disappointing fashion on January 11th at Happy Valley. But prior to that, his form on the all-weather behind Lightning Bolt and Fiery Diamond was even, I would say. But his peak performances have come on the turf, and that's exactly what he finds here. You go back to his run behind Kingman and also Happy Sharing. Both occasions, he sort of found himself too far back in the field from some awkward draws. And now, drawing gate 2 on Sunday afternoon, I think he gets the perfect run here. Either he can jump, sort of put himself up there and lead, or he can just sit in behind and get a nice cart into the race. And I think it sets up really well for Matthew Chadwick and Chris So on this one. I think it's a very strong chance in this race. I think he's slightly better than Class 3. I think he's got that ability, just hasn't been able to
Yeah.
put it all together. And now, as a 4-year-old, I think he can come in here with that race experience in Hong Kong and definitely be putting it together. He's yet to win in Hong Kong, but he's been very consistent since his arrival. So with Midori Beauty on top, I think it's a very interesting race, though. We always know Good Buddy. He returned really nicely, ran third in behind Brave Dreams, who meets him in the same race here. I think those two are very, very interesting. And from the wide draws, I'm a little bit against them. The one that I would do want to make a small case for is number 5, Zarson. Now, I know he hasn't won since 2020, so you got to take that into account when you look at him. And I thought he was a little bit disappointing on the all-weather last time, but I think his runs in behind How Deep Is Your Love, that was at the Valley, and then earlier in the preparation behind the likes of Super Sunny Sing and Packing Treadmill, that's quality turf form in my opinion. And I think he's a genuine 1,200-metre horse, and he's sort of stretched to the 1,400 metres on the turf. I like him back in trip. I think from 70, he can go find a midfield sit as well, and could be the one at a big price. At around 10-1, I think you can definitely warrant an each-way play in the race on. That's a little bit over the odds for mine. But in my opinion, I do think Midori Beauty is the one to beat. I think Map's perfect. Everything's tick, tick, tick. The only interesting part is that Zach Purton doesn't take the ride. He did take this man a few times last preparation, but we get Matthew Chadwick, which is not a negative at all. He's riding very, very well. And from gate 2, should get a great run. So Midori Beauty goes on top in the first leg of the treble for mine.
Yeah, so number 3, Midori Beauty for Nathan in race 8. Yes, he will break from gate 2, which is quite an ideal draw for him. And currently, he is the favorite in this race, 3.5. What do you think, Steve? Do you also like Midori Beauty in this race?
Yes, I do. I like Midori Beauty, 2-time winner at Gosford, trained by Beyond Baker in Australia. Gate 3 this time looks like the ideal position for him, and it was a good start in life, wasn't it? He was very unlucky, lost a lot of lengths at the start in the race won by Happy Sharing, made up the ground, looked like he was destined to come through with a winning run, and then ran green under Zach Purton, sort of veered left and right and was unlucky second. He went up £3 for that. A good fourth to Kingland next time over the 1,400 metres. And then, as Nathan says, 2 runs on the dirt, which is probably not quite as suitable. But the second run on dirt was better when he was 4th to Lightning Bolt. And basically, he came up against a cul-de-sac at the end and there was no more room. And but he was hot on the heels. The last run, disappointing at Happy Valley, his debut at Happy Valley. Nothing came to light for that disappointing effort, but maybe he just needed a break. He comes back after 102 days off. And then it's, yes, Purton's not had the best of luck on this horse, really, because, he was, he didn't get the best. He sort of veered. It wasn't Purton's fault as such, but the horse showed greenness. And then he did come up behind a wall of horses under Zach on his second dirt run. And then last time at Happy Valley, it was Lyle Hewitson that took over. And it's been Matthew Chadwick on the barrier trials recently, and he's shown up well on the barrier trials. And it's also, I think, encouraging that Chadwick comes off Brave Star, who he won on Brave Dreams, who he won with last time. Another high draw for Brave Dreams, and Matthew Chadwick rode a fantastic ride there, got on the rail and came through with a late run. But yes, I went for Midori Beauty as well. I also thought, as Nathan says, I put each way for Good Buddy on my blog as well, because it's, there's a slight question mark. Midori Beauty's not won yet, but he does look destined for greater things, and I think he's a worthy favourite. But it was a very encouraging comeback run from Good Buddy after a 3-month absence. And it's nice to see Hugh Bowman back on again. The draw's wider than ideal, but I don't think it's a deal breaker. And with Thesis being a non-runner, all the horses are one little bit closer to the rail, which is a slight comfort if you're drawn wide. But for me, Midori Beauty.
Yeah, so there is an agreement between Nathan and Steve on number 3, Midori Beauty. After he's now returning from a 3-month spell, and he is always a good-looking horse, really big in size and looks really strong. Good gaze this time, and Matthew Chadwick, I think, is also a good jockey, which is quite suitable for him. So hopefully he can break the maiden. But for me, I would like to have another maiden that in Hong Kong, also from Australia. That will be number 8, Wonder Kid, breaking from gate 8 as well. Before coming to Hong Kong, he was racing in Queensland and going 2 from 2 over there. He's quite a good sprinter. And after arriving here, I think he is doing quite well, settling quite well in this new environment. And after 5 starts here, he is still a maiden. But all the starts before that, he was not beaten far. So I think he is quite talented. And his riding tactic is also quite dynamic. He can stay in the back or in the midfield or in the front. But hopefully this time, after breaking from gate 8, he will be leading, because in race 8, there are not many obvious leaders here. So maybe Wonder Kid, if he has a good break, good jump, he can take the speed, which will be quite favorable for him because the pace in this race is not expected to be fast. So hopefully he can stay in the front. And actually, I think last time the pace was too fast for him, so it was a bit disappointed. He could not lead till the end, but this time, Harry Bentley take the ride, and he also have several good gallops in the morning track work before this race. So he's now quite. He knows the horse quite well, and also if the ground in this afternoon is getting drier and drier, it will also be suitable for him. So hopefully, Wonder Kid. Currently the price is 7.5. I think he is quite a good each way bet, and he will be my value bet for this afternoon at Charene. So to recap, race 8, Nathan and Steve agree with number 3, Midori Beauty, and I'm with number 8, Wonder Kid. So hopefully these two galloper from Australia can have some good performance in Hong Kong in this afternoon. So the second race that we are going to talk about will be race 9, another turf race. It is a class 3 as well, over 1,400 meters. Nathan, who do you fancy in race 9?
Yeah, pretty keen on a value runner here. I made my best value in this race in the penultimate. Number 3, California Voce. Now, this makes its debut in Hong Kong. And I think, look, it's currently 6.8, but I do think this horse will drift. I think as a first up horse from overseas, generally these horses can get out in the market. And I think he's one of them. But I think he's a very talented horse. He was actually trained by Joseph O'Brien over in Ireland. He went by the name of Voce del Palio, and his win before he went out was very, very impressive. Now, the weather was a key factor. I was hoping for a little bit of a sting out of the ground, maybe a bit of rain around, because I do think he is a little bit better with some sting out of the ground. In saying that, though, I loved his trials on the Conguer leading into this. He's had about 3 or 4 barrier trials, and all of them, to me, have screamed a horse that's going very, very well. And I think the Tony Cruzard have a very good opinion of him. Yes, he comes in on a high rating for his wins. He comes in on a 76 in Class 3, and he is definitely well founded, particularly at the weight. He's got to carry 133 pounds here, but I think he's got some class about him. I think he's been going really, really well. I've been very impressed with what I've seen, and I think we'll get a price. California Voce, I think, can make an impression here on Hong Kong debut. But Jaws Barrier 6, I mentioned Matthew Chadwick. He takes the reins in back-to-back races for me, and I think if he can just find a midfield sit with some cover in a race, it should have some genuine tempo here. I think he can run on really, really nicely. I think there's some interesting overseas horses in this race. Kimberly, I think, is a silly price at $36. I think that's a horse I'm definitely going to be having a bet on. Another horse that I think's trialled deceivingly well. I know it looks like it may be when you look at its placings in its trial, you probably got some question marks, but I think it's going really, really well. And I think the price is a little bit overs there as well. And then another one's Endeared, which is another horse that's been going quite well at the trials as well. So I think it's an interesting race with some nice jump outs for some of these overseas gallopers. And then you've got the tested material, obviously, with the likes of Beauty Inspire and also Solid Impact. They're going to be well found in the market, and understandably so. They've been riding around the mark. But California Voce's got some X factor about him. I do think, look, it's hard to see these horses coming up first up and winning, but by bated breath, he's bred well. I think he's a very nice type. And yes, it's been a 265-day spell, but I think he's ready to go here first up with plenty of trials under his belt. So I'll take the risk and go with California Voce as my best each-way bet on the Charene program. I think he's a very good bet, and hopefully he can run a site for followers, because I do think he'll be one that the market will miss late. Wait for the drift. I think he might get out to double-figure odds.
Yes, but currently California Voce is 6.8, breaking from gate 6, making his Hong Kong debut. And before this debut, he already had several barrier trial at Chung Fa, and seems he's doing quite well in Asia because he's from Ireland. And hopefully he's now settled well in this new environment. And I think he's really talented, having good forms overseas, and hopefully he will do well in Hong Kong as well. What do you think of this race 9, Steve? Who do you pick?
Yeah, I thought it was a tricky one. I went for number 5, Beauty Inspire, written by Zach Purton, drawn nicely in 3. Also an Irish horse. He was trained by Gerald Lyons over there. He won his 2 races, 2 from 2 at the Curragh. And he was thought highly enough by the connections for an entry in the juvenile Middle Park at Newmarket or the Phoenix Stakes at the Curragh. Yeah. But of course, he came to Hong Kong, and one of these horses, it was called Beauty Inspire in Ireland and now Beauty Inspire in Hong Kong. He made a nice introduction to Charene as well. Nice fifth to Super Dynamite. And on the strength of that, a lot of judges fancied him to win second up, but he didn't. It was quite disappointing for the next 2 runs. But last time he was back to his old self. He was it was a good fifth over the 1,200 metres to a nice horse called Excellent Fighter. And I think on the basis of that, it looks like a good opportunity for the breakthrough. But I think it's Nathan says California Voce. It's a very interesting race. There's lots of others you could consider. Run Buddy's got another iffy draw, gate 11, but he's sharp from the gates. He'll probably go and lead. And we've also got the likes of Top T, who, I don't know, I just think he's up in class and he's got an attractive weight up in class, but this is obviously it's up in class, but there is a much stronger level of horses he has to compete with here. But once a horse gets the confidence of winning, there's no telling how good they can be. So he's obviously an interesting horse, and Angus Chung, of course, takes his invaluable £7 off too. So he has a good chance. And also Solid Impact. He's been consistent, 2 seconds. He does very little wrong. He's another horse to consider. But Beauty Inspired for me, for veteran handler John Size, but without an abundance of confidence. I think he's short enough in the market. But he's the kind of horse, if he does win, Zach Purton, John Size, you'll think, well drawn, back up to the 1,400. It looked obvious, but it's a tricky old race.
Yes, I think so. It seems to be quite wide open in this race. The current favorites, number 5, Beauty Inspired, will also be my pick here as well. He is now 3.3, breaking from gate 3. And maybe because of the recent barrier trial, seems the horse is now more and more mature. Steve just mentioned that his form in Ireland, he was already a Group 3 winner over there. And at that time, he was also owned by the Beauty Stable. So here in Hong Kong, Zach Purton with this silk also have some confidence for me. So hopefully he will run well. And he's a bit unlucky over his several starts before in Hong Kong. He was also always staying wide, but this time gate 3, and hopefully he can find a good position. Maybe he will get the rail or having quite a good position in the midfield. So hopefully he can have some good performance, because the recent barrier trial is suggesting that the horse has improved a lot. So hopefully this time stepping up to 1,400 meters is also quite suitable for him. So let's see whether he will have some good performance in this afternoon. So to recap, race 9 for Nathan, the pick is number 3, California Falls, and Steve and I agree with number 5, Beauty Inspire. So the last leg of the treble, race 10, is a good Class 2 race over 1,800 meters. There are a lot of 4-year-olds competing with each other here. Nathan, who do you like in the final race of the card?
Yeah, I'll echo sentiments of Steve from the last race. This is a nightmare, this field. I think this is a very competitive race, very good Class 2 to end the card. And I think we're going to get a really good guide on this Hong Kong Derby here. I think there's plenty of quality coming from that race. Obviously, the obvious one's my on-top pick in the end. I landed with number 7, Sword Point. Loved his run in the Derby. I thought he was quite good. I think there's a lot of forgivable runs from that Derby. And I think the interesting thing coming back to 1,800 metres after the 2,000 metre run, I think you can make the case that a lot of them in that field didn't run out the trip. I think that's a fair sentiment to make based on the tempo of the race and how well they ended up running on. And we all saw the performance of Voyage Bubble and how impressive that was on the day, particularly the ride from Alexi Bedell. I think, again, that form, I think, is the right form coming into this race. They're the sort of up-and-comers. You got the Sword Points in this race. Sweet Encounter's drawn awkwardly, but you got to be respecting of him with Zach Purton taking the mount. Beauty Verse, his debut in Hong Kong was amazing, and since then hasn't quite replicated the heights. And then Straight Aaron at the bottom of the page, another very, very good run coming out of the Derby as well. So I think that's probably the key form line here. And then you got the older types with Butterfield, Savvy 9. They're sort of finding a rating now, despite the big weight, but a rating where they can find wins again. And then Champion Dragon found a career peak last time. So I think this is a very interesting race. But Sword Point for mine is the one. Drawn barrier 4, Hugh Bowman takes the mount here. He's been with it this last couple of starts, rode him in the Classic Cup and also the Derby. And I feel like back in the trip to the 800 metres, perfect map from barrier 4. This is the one that I want to be following, especially if you go back to his win in Hong Kong. That was at this track and trip. And he absolutely demoralised them in Class 3. Had to carry a bigger weight that day, but now drops in here with a decent weight here. Pardon me, with the 125 pounds. I think he's been well weighted in a race like this. Should go forwards, find somewhere close to the 1-1. And I think he takes the power of beating. I do think he's the one to beat. My second on-top pick in the race is Champion Dragon, just because I do think there's a lack of speed here. I think that's the one that'll go forward, give you the biggest sight, especially with the rail, I believe, is in the C+3. So, yeah, I think that's a positive. So, from barrier 2, he can jump, and he'll look the winner a long way out. And then Alacrity. That was a last start winner that was very impressive, and I think we can follow that horse with some confidence as well. So this race does not stop anywhere. I landed with Sword Point, and again, as Steve said with the last race, not with a lot of confidence. I think you can see this race in a lot of different perspectives, but I've gone with Sword Point, and I might be having a few saver bets around the card, but I just think Sword Point maps perfectly. He's done it at this course and distance, and despite it being Class 2, I think he does have some class about him and some progressiveness about him. So Sword Point goes on top.
Yes, quite an interesting race here. Strong fields, just like a mini Hong Kong Derby, and all the 4 years will face some older contenders in the top race. But the field in 79, you have a short one, number 7 here, already proven himself is good at over this distance, 1,800 meters. Who do you think, Steve? Who do you pick in this race?
Yeah, I also went for number 7, Sword Point. Back in the Derby, Beauty Eternal was my win bet, and Sword Point was my each way. And it's a race that I've watched a long time, the Derby. I've watched it several reruns, and Frankie Law almost considers it's the one that got away for Sword Point as well. And also a few other professionals in sort of racing media think that had Hugh Bowman actually switched outside, maybe followed Voyage Bubble through, he might be celebrating a Hong Kong Derby. Now, I think at the time when I was kind of looking at it through my pocket, I was thinking, why he looked determined to look for an inside path. It's almost like an outside path just never crossed his mind, and he just wasn't having it. And I think in the cold light of day, I look at the race even like 10 minutes before we did this podcast, and in some way, it's almost like he didn't quite stay. He was pulling so hard at the beginning of the race. He was traveling so powerfully. There's an argument to say, had he pulled him out on the outside, he while he was full of momentum, he could have gone on there, but he didn't. And he was denied room close home. But at the end of the race, he didn't look to be full of running. So... But I think back at the 1,800 meters, he's a very attractive horse because, of course, he won over this distance. And then in the Hong Kong Classic Cup, he was second to Super Sunny Singh, again over the 1,800, for which he went up £5. So he's a very nice horse, a real good looker as well. And I think if anyone, does lay the blame at Hugh Bowman's door, it could be his road to redemption here, because he does look like a very nice horse. And there should be some good pace on here as well, I should imagine, with the likes of Classic Dragon, as you said there as well. And interesting race. I also think the likes of Sweet Encounter looks overpriced at $12. He was just a place behind Sword Point last time. He's one of these horses that started his campaign really well this season. He's kind of fallen away, but I thought that last race was interesting in the Derby. He was ridden by Luke Curry, and it's rather significant that Zach Purton takes over. You'd like to think he had a few choices there. Champion Dragon, I should say. I was frantically trying to think of the right name there. And Alacrity, a Chilean Group 1 winner, of course. An interesting race, and not to forget Straight Aaron, of course, who made a winning debut for Casper Founds, and also a very good 5th. So really, as Nathan alludes to as well, the Butterfields, the more established horses who are still capable of excellent form on a good day. So again, like the Voyage Bubble race in the Derby, any sort of horse here wouldn't surprise. And of course, you've got the usual trouble in running to think of as well. So Sword Point for me, but it was the horse I was always going to pick on the basis of what I thought was a slightly unlucky run in the Derby. But race number 9, I think it's a race where nothing would surprise me.
So there's another agreement between Nathan and Steve on number 7, Sword Point. Of course, he's an up-and-coming 4-year-old, already proven 1,800 meters is okay, is suitable for him in the Classic Cup, finishing second behind Super Sunny Singh. It was a great one, but last time in the Derby, he was a bit unlucky. But I think that there is another lucky horse in the Derby in this race that will be my pick. number 12, Strict Aaron. He's in the bottom weight here. And last time in the Derby, he was staying as the rail for the whole trip. But unfortunately, he did not have a clear one in the home straight. And he was finishing fifth. I think it was not bad because he was not beaten far. But this time he is now racing in a Class 2 race, and Vincent Ho takes the rise. He also has some good relationship with trainer Casper Fong, and this time I think maybe the lightweight is the main point that I'm having him. And of course, I do think Sopon is quite a strong contender. So hopefully in this race, it should be a match between these two 4-year-olds, number 7 Sopon and number 12 Strict Aaron. Because now Strict Aaron is 4.9. Maybe I will have a small bet on the win because he's now a better price than Sopon. But of course, these two horses are really strong, and hopefully they can have a better position in this race because both of them were quite unlucky in the Derby, so it was forgivable. But both of them returning back to 1800 meters will also be a suitable trip for them. So I'm quite looking forward to these pair of 4-year-old, and hopefully they can keep improving and maybe participate in the bigger races, in the group races at the end of the season. So to recap, race 10, Nathan and Steve agree with number 7, Sopon, sorry, and I will go for number 12, Strict Aaron. So that's all for our picks in the treble 3, the last 3 races. So it's time for us to talk about some confidence bet for us. Which will be your best bet, Nathan?
Yeah, very, very keen on one in race number 7, first leg of the quaddie for us here in Oz. And I think the Oz bookmakers are going to find it. That's number 7, Galvanic. I think it's a very, very good bet on this card. Zach Purton takes the mounts for the first time for the Jamie Richards yard. And we've seen that combination on Wednesday night have success with Magniac, who was a very good win on Wednesday night, one of the probably wins of the evening on that occasion. And Jamie Richards is just absolutely airborne in Hong Kong at the moment. I saw someone put a stat up on Twitter, and it's unreal how well he's done since arriving. I know he's brought some nice horses over, but to have the success he has just shows the quality of trainer that he is. Galvanic's no exception here. He's unlucky not to be a winner. He's had 4 starts in Hong Kong, 1 forgive run at the Valley, and then subsequently all 3 placings at Sha Tin have been very, very good. First 2 over 1,200 metres behind Happy Fat Cat, an excellent fighter. And then found the 1,400 metres, ran into race rival here, Lost Child. Lost Child draws 13. We get barrier 2, and there's a significant weight swing that I think will play a part in this race. Drawn gate 2, I just love the map here for Galvanic. We've got the speed horse, All Riches, drawn to gate 3. That horse will jump, it'll lead, and we can just stalk that tempo every single step of the way over the 1,400 metres. This gelding out of I Love This City will get the perfect run, jump off its back with about 300 to go, and Purton will be saluting and shouting the bar, hopefully, post-race, because I think this horse is a very, very good bet on the program. I'm quite keen to be loading in here. Look, I think it's a race with depth in saying that, though. I do think All Riches himself could jump and be hard to run down. Silver Hammer, if that wins, I might cry. I've found him on almost every single bet on this show. I've given him a shout. He's back in grade. He's drawn 10. So if he comes out and wins, I might you might have me in tears on the next beer garden. And then outside of that, I thought Blue Marlin was a nice chance as well. So I do think there's some nice chances in the race, but none better than Galvanic. I think he sets up perfectly to finally get his deserved Hong Kong win. But I do think he's the one to beat, and I'm happy to be with him. Galvanic, best bet of the day for mine.
Yeah, that's a nice horse. Number 7 in race 7, Galvanic will be Nathan's best bet. Currently, he's now the favorite of 3.6. A good draw, and of course, a strong jockey-trainer partnership. Zach Purton and Jamie Richards, they are doing really, really well, no matter in Happy Valley and also Sha Tin. What about you, Steve? Do you have any horse that you like maybe in the dirt?
Yes, I went for race number 6, and that is number 7, Youthful Deal. Really nice horse. He's just very good. He's 2 from 4, 50% strike rate on the dirt. And I thought his last run was probably, well, his career best. He came from gate 11 that day under Vincent Ho, travelled really well. And more importantly, he found a lot of pressure at the end. It looked like Zach Purton was coming to, Gummy was going to win that day, but he just, actually wasn't Zach Purton on, but he's a first-time booking now on Gummy. And it looked like he was going to collar Youthful Deal, but he stuck out his neck and got a bit more out of him. And Vincent Ho, who retains the ride. And yes, he's. I think his noseband's on because he does have a slight high head carriage. You always question the horse's resolution, but it doesn't seem to stop him going. And he just reminds me of a good old-fashioned British sprinter, actually, like an old Lock song back in the 80s, but not quite as fast. But yeah, it's a very nice horse, youthful deal for Frankie Law. So, but it's a fantastic race, a bit of a risky one for your best bet. We've got Adafil, who's been a dirt revelation this year, but it's for a 4-timer under Caris Teaton, and defied a £12 rise last time to prevail over Adios, who won next time up in grade in the Class 2. So he certainly advertised the form. And you've also got the likes of Gummy Gummy, who's £4 better off with the selection. I like Lightning Bolt throughout the season. He and Lyle Hewittson's back on. I just think the handicapper has him just about right this time for all that Gate 1's ideal. You can just imagine him being a top 4 finish. And you've also got Toronado Phantom, who's a course and distance winner, but I don't think up to this level. And Keep You Warm, top weight. He's more of a turf horse, and I've always been expecting him to take advantage of a drop in grade. This is a bit of a drop. He's been used to much better than this, but some horses just they just lose their zip, and I think Keep You Warm is one of them. Unfortunately, he's just going down at a fast rate of knots, and he's not running well enough to take advantage of a declining mark, unfortunately. But for me, Youthful Deal, I think there's a lot more to come from this horse. He's good on turf, he's also good on the dirt, but it's dirt where he's certainly making a name for himself at the minute.
Yeah, so number 7, Youthful Deal for Steve. And this is race 6 is quite an interesting race. Only have 10 runners here, but 3 of them is from John Size stable. But likely Tornado Phantom is the best one from this stable. But and he need to improve at this rating. But yes, going down to the bottom, like Youthful Deal from Gate 5. He's from Frankie Law stable, and he is quite a strong last time winner. As we see, last time he won impressively. He beats Gummy Gummy, and these 2 horses will compete again together. So it is quite a good match to watch. And for me, I also fancy some horse over the all-weather. I have my best bet on the opener. In race 1, it is another small field over the all-weather, a class 3 over 1650 meters. I quite like number 1, Rocket Space. So hopefully this owner also owned the Straight Aaron in the last race, and also he also owned Galvanic in race 7. So hopefully this owner family can celebrate for several times in this afternoon at Charene. So talking about Rocket Spade, he's quite unlucky recently in Hong Kong. When he was racing in Australia, he is a top class horse over there. Is a group winning horse, but after arriving in Hong Kong, he ran in the 4-year-old Classic Series last season, but he did not have some good results. And also in this season, he's now at a career low mark of 78 at this moment. But recently, when he was racing in Happy Valley, he was always unlucky, but he was not beaten far. So after so many starts in Hong Kong, after 15 starts in Hong Kong, he's now already 5-year-old and still a maiden. But this time, I think switching to the all-weather track is quite a correct move for him, because there is a small field here. So maybe after breaking from Gate 3, Rocket Spade can stay in the midfield, not very far at the back, and he will be more likely to be winning. He always show a great turn of foot, so hopefully he can also handle the all-weather track, because the recent rivals at Happy Valley, they are much more stronger than here. And of course, in this race, there is a last time winner, Havan Aguila. He's from Gate 5, he's also up and coming, unexposed, but I think Rocket Spade switching to the all-weather track here, he is now quite classy in this field. So hopefully we will see him to break the maiden in Hong Kong on his 16th start here. So he will be my best bet. He gets a good jockey on board. Vincent Ho knows the horse quite well, and currently the price is $4. So hopefully he can have some good performance later. So to recap, our best bet, race 7, number 7, Galvanic for Nathan, and race 6, number 7, Youthful Deal for Steve, and race 1, number 1, Rocket Spade for myself. And let's talk about some outsider that we fancy. Nathan, who do you pick as your value bet? Can you tell us again?
Yeah, we'll head back to the second last, the penultimate on the card. That is race 9, number 3, California Voce. I'm just convinced he's going to run well. I kept looking at the race and I wanted to be slightly against Beauty Inspire. I know you both gave him a very good push, and so I'm terrified. But the fact that he's just been a little bit plain for mine. I know his last start was very impressive, but he's been burning me lately. I liked him first up and I liked him last start, and he's hurt my feelings a bit. So I want to be against him. I went and found California Voce. I just looked at his trials, and I'm sure that he's ready to be peaking, despite being probably a little bit unsuitable. I just think he's going really, really well. He ran over this 400 meters a few times over in Ireland as well. You can go back for his form, and he found himself in Group 3 level, and I think he was never really disgraced as a 2-year-old. Now as a 3-year-old, I think he's matured nicely. This gelding out of bated breath, and I think he can only run well. And I think the market, even though like as I said, I do believe he'll drift. The market seems to agree. I think 6.8 for a debutant from overseas is a good indicator that he's been well respected. And I think on his mark, he's very. It's tough to come over on a rating like this and win. But I do think he's got some ability about him. So I've gone with California Voce, and it's a day where there is some value scattered throughout the card, but I think he's the best of the each-way chances. As I said, I just think Tony Cruz has got him going really well. Loved his jump outs. Drawn gate 6. Midfield sit with some cover, and hopefully Matthew Chadwick can have him screaming down the middle of the track to win on Hong Kong debut. I'm convinced he can only run well. Even if he doesn't win today, I think he's one we can follow with confidence moving forward. I think he'll give us a bold sight. So California Voce on top, and my value runner of the day.
Yeah, that's good. So race 9, number 3, California Voce, making his Hong Kong debut. I think he is quite a talent horse, and hopefully we will see him to have some good performance on his debut or on his later starts over the same course and distance in Hong Kong. I think he is doing quite well in the Chung Fa Barrier Trial, so hopefully he can run well in this afternoon. What about you, Steve? Who do you like? Who do you pick as your value bets today?
Yeah, I took a bit of a chance in race number 3, number 10, and that was Sparkling Dolphin, gate 11, so that's fine down the straight 1,000 metres of Charene. It's an interesting race, actually. There's some nice debutants here, the likes of Dan Attack, who I think has probably the best chance. Dan Attack, and that's Zach Burton and Jamie Richards, and also look good in trials. And just to mention that trial, back in third was Star Club. And I think it's part owned by the connections behind Wellington, trained by Richard Gibson. And so that's a nice horse as well. But Sparkling Dolphin from the Misui yard, he's a son of Exceed and Excel. He's rather lost his way this season, but I thought his last run was when he was 6th to Red Elegance. He showed up well for a long way over course and distance, faded close home, but I think it was a step back in the right direction. And he's now off a mark of 48, which is £4 below his last run. He's an interesting character, and he's a 7 years old horse. And to be honest, he seems to does what he wants when he wants. He's a hard horse to actually predict, but he's still capable of a good run. And I just think there's a possibility he might run quite well. He's reunited with Wagner Borges, and jockey looking to find some momentum because his last victory was away back on the 8th of February with Speedy Mouse for Frankie Law. So he could do with a bit of a kickstart for his season, Wagner Borges. But for me, yes, Sparkling Dolphin, nice draw. And hopefully he can run well at double-figure odds.
Yes, it is really wide open in race 3 over the straight course in this class 4 race, because nearly half of the field will be making his debut in Hong Kong, and most of the other horse are not having many experience here. So yes, number 10, Sparkling Dolphin, both the trainer Michel and jockey Wagner Borges are really hungry for a winner, and this time he will break from gate 11, which should be a really good draw for the straight race. So hopefully he already have some good experience, proven himself quite good at this course and distance as well. So hopefully he can bounce back. And we'll also be cheering for him as well. And for me, my value bet goes to race 8. That's we just discussed before in the first leg of the treble. That race 6, number 8, Wonder Kid will be my value pick here. He is still a maiden after 5 starts in Hong Kong, but I do think he is an and he is still keep improving. I quite like his performance in Queensland before coming to Hong Kong. He's a two-time winner over there, unbeaten, 2 from 2, and I think he's quite talented. And after arriving to Hong Kong, he is also settling well. And also in this race 8, there are no obvious leader here. So maybe Wonder Kid can take the lead after breaking from the good draw. So hopefully he can have some good performance after 5 stars here. So hopefully we will see him improving, and maybe he is quite likely to break the maiden here. So to recap our value bet for today at Charene, race 9, number 3, California Jose for Nathan, and race 3, number 10, Sparkling Dragon for Steve. And for me, that will be race 8, number 8, Wonder Kid. So that's all for our preview in this afternoon at Charene. There are so many good races to watch. So hopefully you will enjoy it, and hopefully we will bring you some winner. Thank you for watching again, and we will see you next time for next week's Happy Valley preview. See you next time. Goodbye.